but there's a writer's room somewhere. And
Somewhere.
yeah, and in that writer's room, they are figuring out these seasonal arcs that are they're just gobsmacking. Like for instance, remember for a moment there, it was very plausible that he was going to win the election but start serving in prison.
Hi, everyone. It's Nicole Wallace from Deadline White House. I'm here with a new project. It's called The Best People with Nicole Wallace. The best people are accomplished, but they're also accessible. And here at The Best People, I'm going to share them with all of you. I'm so excited to do that. The first person that I reached out to is the person who hosts my most favorite podcast, Smartless. But when I asked Jason Bateman for advice about how to podcast, he said, it's called Smartless for a reason. I don't have any advice. But he did agree to talk to me, which is very good news because he has a huge political brain and watches more MSNBC than I do, on top of being an award-winning actor and director. So this is The Best People, and this is Jason Bateman.
I want to be that person just off your camera so bad on that show. The big steady cam, tilt down. It's also exciting. I'm very addicted to your show. Very big fan. Very excited to be here.
Oh, you're so nice. I'm very addicted to Smartless in this thing. Like, I really believe in never meeting your heroes. It can only go downhill. I don't ever do it. Like, Steph Curry is my hero. I hope to never meet him. If I saw him in an airport, I'd run.
No,
and you guys, like,
he is like run to him. He could not be sweeter.
He's my hero. I love Shohei Ohtani. I feel like I don't think we run in the same circles. I don't know that I'd run into him, but I really try to never meet my hero. Never. I don't know if that's getting old. And like, I love you guys. Like, I really thought I was rocking COVID. I was like, I'm eating green soup. I'm nailing like third grade. I was teaching my son third grade. I was anchoring out of the basement and the numbers were up. And I started listening to Smartless, and I would laugh until I cried. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably not okay if these guys are making me cry.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would just weep. You'd be talking to, I don't know, it wasn't even COVID anymore, and I'd still cry. Like Courtney Cox plays the piano, and I didn't know any of you, and I was just weeping. I'm like, that's so beautiful. And I think I tapped into my own like instability and isolation from how in love I was with you guys on Smartless.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was some necessary nonsense during that really kind of fraught period. And we were really surprised that people were listening to us because it was just a selfish sort of thing for us to kind of stay in contact when you couldn't be in physical contact or proximity. And so it was kind of this Zoom that turned into something to monetize, as Sean is so good at doing. He's like, whoa, just guys, let me have my guys just run some numbers because this is fun and everything, but I think we could make some money. I was like, all right. Yeah, that was a big shocker and remains a big shocker. We thought it was all going to go away after COVID and we'd get back to our lives of not doing it and actually seeing each other in person. And there was such an audience there. By the time COVID was done, and we were getting so many flattering incoming calls to talk to people that we would never speak to. To your point about Shohei Ohtani or Steph Curry, like you're not going to bump into those people. Like it's possible to like talk to folks that you can really get a lot smarter speaking to, and unless you're trapped in an elevator, they're not going to speak to you. So it's our little 1 hour elevator breakdown.
Why did you think in the beginning that someone would listen to 45 minutes of, like the thing about cable is like you're trying to be so efficient with words and time under this sort of hypothesis that people are busy and it's so competitive. But people are really drawn to these really intimate, really unscripted, really long conversations. And as someone sort of on the other end of that medium, making my first foray into this one, that in and of itself is like a delicious and wonderful, like affirming reality about what people will listen to.
Well, first, obviously, we did not think anyone was going to listen and that no one really needed to listen because, it costs next to nothing to put one of these things up. I mean, you can go down to the Apple Store and get a podcast mic and stick it in your laptop. That's all we do, really. It's just a Zoom. The fact that people did check us out, probably because, the first wave of guests were just some of our fancy friends that were nice enough to say yes. And then I guess somewhere through that sample size, people kind of liked the ability to go about their day and multitask and kind of half listen to us because we are not journalists. We don't claim to know much about anything and are happy to sit there and have smarter people answer our questions that are really coming from a layman's point of view. And he's now since become a controversial figure, but Charlie Rose is somebody that I watched every single episode he ever did for no other reason than he's us, as far as like being a non-expert in most of the industries and experts that he had on his show, and he would just basically, well, explain that to me. Why are you the king of drywall? Why were you drawn to sheetrock? When you're, and what is it that makes it such a big industry? Like, and like that's a fascinating in to just be kind of a common person that is curious about the industry that might live right next door to you. So, and you have one of the reasons I love your show is you have people skills, and you're able to listen and talk, and you never get the sense that you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can go to the next question on your buck slip there. You're listening to them, and because the audience is listening as well, and so you are probably going to arrive at the same question the audience has if you take the same position the audience has, which is just listening. You're not prepared, hopefully. I mean, the other two on our show are not. That was part of the design. That's to have a surprise guest that was really selfishly so that the other two don't have to do anything. But it also affords them the same perspective as the audience, that they're just listening. They don't have anything loaded. And the next question is just going to simply be prompted by being a part of the conversation.
And listening. I mean, I think that's it. And I think that goes beyond what either of us does. Like, I think that's the political answer. And there's something like perversely brilliant about Trump hearing anger and then feeding it back to voters. One of his political gifts is like he hears the grievance and then he makes it clear to his voters that he hears them.
Right. And you're implying, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that there's a baked in level of cynicism there, and manipulation and opportunity to tap into a large group of people that are aggrieved, and that, well, their votes count the same, so let's go after them because there's a lot of people that are pissed off. I can't begrudge them that because that's kind of the game of politics.
Yeah.
But once you're elected, it's like, can we now like actually help the country instead of continuing the cynicism and trying to put more people into? It's basically creating a larger group of people aggrieved with his policies, and then somehow convincing them that, yeah, I know I'm the arsonist, but trust me, I'll be a firefighter soon. I don't know how he's able to do both.
But I think politics is like Nordstrom, right? Like the customer's always right. I worked at Nordstrom 1 year in college, and like people would return things that were like 11 years old and stained. And I remember going to like a manager. I'm like, "You're going to take that skirt back?" And they're like, "Yep, we take back any so the voter's always right." But I think that to the degree that voters were saying something about Biden's age or about inflation or about the democracy, instead of trying to change what they were saying, I think people are too slow to not listen to it. But I do think it's still true that people face to face don't hate each other as much as people do online. And so I feel like to the degree that I think we could be okay, I still think it's like going and getting in front of people. Like I still think the resurgence of like this is, if this were political, this is retail politics, right? It is two people talking to each other and listening to each other. I think that's what politics has to go back to. And
but that presupposes that they have access to a speaker from which a bunch of facts are coming. So what do you do about that? Your point about the customer is always right. Well, they're making their right decision on facts that might not be facts. And so what do you do about that? In other words, do you think Trump would have gotten the same number of votes if the people who voted for him had access to or the curiosity to seek out and find the truth? Because they're not getting the
Uh,
truth over on Fox. This 780 some $1 million lawsuit is proof of it,
mhm.
you know. So and that was just one issue. So what do you do about that? You know, Pete
You're so
Buttigieg.
good. I can't believe you're asking me a question. I wanted to ask you. So this is my
Yeah.
thing. This is the thing that keeps me up at night. I think the truth has to be the next moonshot. And I think that all the smartest people in the world, maybe all the fired scientists, have to figure out how to make the truth the thing that's sticky, the thing that goes viral. Like the truth has to be the thing that people are sending around and they're like, don't look, look at this when no one's watching. This is the truth about Trump, or this is the truth about.
But who's the arbiter of what is true? I've always fantasized that, you know, that little grade that's on the front of restaurants, you know, A, B, C, or
Yeah,
D, whatever. Like it would be great if media was forced to have that little bug in the bottom right corner of, you know, just like on MSNBC. During the day, it's news
yeah,
reporting and it's facts, and at night it is
yeah.
opinion. And like that should have it's a separate letter, no better, no worse, just identifies that, and therefore you can intellectualize the thing that you're talking about, you know, opine on it, whatever it is, but the same burden is not placed on that reporter in front. And then on Fox, they can go and freestyle if they want, and on
Hmm.
MSNBC, you can freestyle if you want. I happen to think I'm a huge fan, but I happen to think that MSNBC doesn't drift from the truth. They just have this immense amount of really interesting, solid facts to talk about, and so they don't have to freestyle and embellish. Or I don't know. We're talking about Pete Buttigieg. He's been on Fox a bunch of times and is somehow, you know, reaching that audience. I asked
Hmm.
him why he's the only one that's really been on there, and why are the politicians not being invited on because Fox is afraid of what they're going to say, or do the politicians
Hmm.
not want to be on because they don't want to take the heat?
I
Do you
think it's
know?
probably a combination of both, but
Yeah,
Pete's been going on for years. I
it's
remember when I
great.
was first dating my husband, I he wouldn't we were gonna go get something to eat, and he said, "No, I can't. We gotta stay in." I said, "Why?" He said, "There's a Buttigieg town hall on Fox." This
Yeah.
is like 2018 or 19, and I was like, "We're staying home for that?" Like, okay. I mean, it's just like it's great TV. It's amazing that he does it, and like he's been doing it for almost 10 years. Like, it's part of who he is, and but to your point about news and perspective, I think it should go farther. Like I actually think we should reveal, like I almost like a confessional. I worked for George W. Bush. I worked for Dick Cheney. I still like them. I know they did lots of things wrong. I also think that if we're part of our own sort of responsibility for our own credibility, I think putting it all out there and being more transparent. And I love Pete. I love everything that he's doing. And I think that that's not only is that like the right model, I think it's the only model. Like you cannot leave out half of the country you don't need to win everybody, but you
Well,
have to win over some of those folks.
yeah, but the truth tellers, or whatever book all the facts sit in from day to day, is not there is no attempt to hide that from the Republican voters.
Yeah,
It's ubiquitous. It is. I
I
mean,
know.
you have to make a real effort to stay insulated from the
I know.
facts and common
I
sense.
know.
It's everywhere except
It's
on
insane.
Fox or
It's
Breitbart or
insane.
whatever the hell
Yeah.
the spots are. I was telling my girls in 2020, I was saying, you guys are going to look back. This is the most fascinating year. This is going to be a hard one to beat with COVID and with Jan 6 and the
Yeah.
rest. And it just keeps getting more and more interesting. You know, I joked earlier about the Trump show I'm addicted to. I really am fascinated. I can't
Yeah.
stop watching the things that he does and the things that he says, and 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 marry that to the fact that there are 80 some million people that would vote again for him tomorrow. Um,
Tomorrow. Yeah,
is just a social phenomenon, a political phenomenon that I just can't get my head around, and I don't want to ignore it. We are all neighbors. We all share this country
totally.
together, and so I want to understand it. And I know that there's genuine dissatisfaction with their standing in life or the system and whatnot. And so that's legit. I'm sensitive to that. I respect that. Um, but whatever section there is that is kind of doing it just to stick it to the libs, it's not Schadenfreude, but I am curious to see what they're going to do when, eggs keep going up and gas keeps
Hmm.
going up. And
Yep.
I'm not wishing harm on anyone, but it's tragic that I think, the people who are least equipped to bear what the Trump administration is going to yield are a lot of the folks that voted for him. And that's really freaking
Yep.
sad, you know?
Again, I don't wish any person or business, financial harm, but in some ways, the market reaction brought new people to the fight, and I think
Yeah,
that's
look
a
at what
good
happened to
thing.
Elon
I'm
Musk's bottom line.
right,
I mean,
right. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
right, and so I don't wish anyone financial ruin. I don't wish anyone, and I welcome them to the effort to not have the whole country sort of held hostage to the whims of Trump. I mean, the tariff thing, isn't even a thing. There aren't any. There are no deals. They're not on. They're not off. They're just like whatever he wakes up and does.
And to
And
the extent there are, you got to eat it,
correct.
because you've made so much the last few years. Like what?
But it might take something that he can't spin his way out of to make everybody understand.
Right. And that's unfortunate that there's only one way that medicine's going to go down or the lesson's going to be
Yeah.
absorbed. Like, gotta have to learn the lesson the hard way. Again, to my point, that's going to be a painful lesson
Yeah.
for mostly the people that voted for him, and
Yeah.
that's tragic. But I guess it's the only way to break the fever, perhaps.
I think to your point, Trump was able to do all the things he did and get reelected because people didn't believe him, right? Like half the country they didn't believe me, they didn't believe Biden or Harris, and so in some ways, like what the what the price of your cart is at the grocery store, Walmart, is just it doesn't like I didn't do it, I didn't say it, it is what it is. So I think that what makes the Trump story so amazing is nobody knows what's going to happen next. I mean, the people in his cabinet don't seem to know what's happening next. It's crazy.
And but there's a writer's room somewhere, and
Somewhere.
yeah, and in that writer's room, they are figuring out these seasonal arcs that are they're just gobsmacking, and somehow they build to these great, cliffhangers too that are kind of like, well, that's like jumping the shark. But like for instance, remember for a moment there, it was very plausible that he was going to win the election but start serving in prison. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't that would you would write
Was it
that maybe,
crazy?
yeah, like
Yeah.
that would be a shark
Yeah.
jump the shark moment. But no,
Yeah.
actually everything was built towards that legitimately can happen, and people are trying to figure out the apparatus to get classified documents to him, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. And like to me, that's just a show I can't stop watching because he
Yeah.
keeps outdoing himself and doubling and tripling down, and it's not for show. It's actually a reasonable escalation based on what just happened last. It's like it's really happening.
Does it change your industry at all when the real world is so batshit crazy? Does
Well,
it make people think I mean,
yeah.
oh, this couldn't happen when the real world keeps defying that frame of this couldn't happen?
Well, there's plenty of projects I've been involved with, at least two of them that are directly related to key figures in his administration, um, that I have started developing, but then backed away because there's no way you can do that because those are still active storylines, and by the
Mm,
time you're done shooting it, the ending may have been written, and we won't have it,
mhm.
in the show.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, it's the notion of what is plausible and possible in the political world. Uh, I think the writers' rooms are having difficulty imagining it. Even in
Yeah.
a fictional setting, if you were to just have a fictional
Hmm.
administration, because I think most of us come off the car lot with a standard feature of shame and an ability to become embarrassed, and
Hmm.
that's not built into our
Hmm.
systems of defense. You can't assume that somebody is going to drive right through shamelessness. And he does, and he is, and so we're constantly on our heels because we're surprised.
I think it's amazing that people haven't adapted it. Because, like, to your point, like, he has no shame. He has like three impulses: greed, winning, and I don't even know what the third would be. And this is on us too. We still cover him like they're playing 3D chess. They're always playing whack-a-mole,
Well,
always.
I think it's just a question of like the problem is that nothing matters because no one's listening. Like the
Maybe.
MAGA folks aren't watching MSNBC or reading the New York Times, where just one of the really salient points would be, why would this guy be slashing and burning and cutting all of the waste and abuse and all that stuff? And then at the other side of his mouth, say, I want a $45 million birthday parade. Like it's just they're at odds
And
with
a
one
$400
another.
million
A-
jet.
Exactly. That could have filled with bugs, listening device, and on and on and on. But like, you wouldn't even waste your time reporting that because it's not going to move the dial because in the fire hose, you're not even going to hear it or see it. And so what do? People like yourself, you can't stop reporting the news, but like, who are we talking to?
Hmm.
Do you ever see a day, and I know this is kind of a third rail for politics, but at what point, if ever, do you think the story would change from reporting on the outrageousness of Trump and his actions, his decisions, his words, and instead move to the people that have voted for him twice? And I know that
You
goes
know,
back to the whole story of deplorables, and like as soon as that happened, everyone just backed off and don't ever talk bad about America and the 80 million. So, but he's you know he's never changed. Like
yeah,
he's always been the same. He didn't do a 180 and dupe everybody when he
yeah,
got to the White House. It's the
yeah.
people that have put him there and then put him there again that really deserve a great deal of responsibility and a talking to. I'm sorry, and I say that with love. They are our neighbors, as I said
Yeah,
before, and I know
yeah,
that they are deservedly aggrieved and whatnot. But there's another way to do it. There's somebody else in the Republican Party that can look after your issues. If it makes you sick to vote for a Democrat, great, vote for a Republican. Tons of my friends are Republican. Like I have no
yeah,
issues with Republicans. It's this extra step that I think is so unnecessary to follow blindly.
yeah. I mean, I started out covering the Trump voters because from our end we kind of missed them, and I covered people who'd voted for Obama at least once or twice, or Clinton, and then voted for Trump. It's everything we've been talking about. They either don't believe the bad things, they think Democrats are worse. They found something they really didn't like about Biden and then Harris.
I was at some fancy Hollywood thingy, and
Oh, tell us
Rahm
about a
Emanuel
fancy
was
Hollywood thing.
there. It's boring as you can imagine, um,
No,
but
this is
but
boring. Tell
no,
me a
but
fancy Hollywood
well, but
story.
only to bring it back to politics, which was that Rahm Emanuel was there, and as was Ari, and I said to Ari, I said, I hear that Rahm is going to run. And, Ari gave, beautifully kind of non-committal kind of, grin or whatever. But it's now since become more public that Rahm might be one of the people to run. And I got really excited about that because, like yourself, he's been uniquely accessed to these places of this access in there and the knowledge and being chief of staff and what ambassador to Japan and mayor and whatnot. And so anyway, I think he'd be a really exciting candidate. But then I said to somebody, and somebody said, "Oh no, he'll never win. He's Jewish." And like, I'm a guy who lives in Los
I mean, Trump's
Angeles,
a
and
felon. We have to stop with
right,
that.
but then I started thinking, oh, this and Pete Buttigieg can't win because he's gay, and I started thinking, well, am I just in such an LA bubble that I
No,
just can't imagine that that would be a barrier to somebody
no.
voting for someone, or that somebody is black, or that somebody is a woman, or and then I started thinking, and I'm going to ask you, to the extent you're comfortable answering it, what do you if you're an independent voter or somebody that's kind of on the border between voting Republican or Democrat, is a gay, black, Jewish, or female has the best chance of being the next non-white middle-aged male uh, president?
I
Where do you think
think,
the
I mean,
tolerance is?
well, so I think you go to the battleground states, right? And in Pennsylvania, I mean, Shapiro won, I think he won like a huge margin, huge margin. So
Right,
those are the same people you have to win over,
right,
right?
right.
And he's, very comfortable with his faith, talks about it all the time.
Yeah,
I think you go to Michigan, huge, huge crossover of Trump voters and Whitmer voters. I
right,
mean, there's a woman. I mean, you got to
right.
go study the battleground states where women, I mean, in Michigan, I think women hold all those top statewide offices. Jocelyn Benson's the Secretary of State. There's a female attorney general. I mean, you got to go look. I mean,
And
this is the
Obama's
work
already
for
been
David.
president twice,
And
so
Obama's been
that's yeah.
president twice. So you gotta go look behind the tabs. I worry a lot that the Democratic Party will take all the wrong lessons from Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris's defeats, because I think, Whitmer's a great example. I think Nikki Haley was really a threat to Donald Trump, and she
Mhm.
was the second highest vote getter. I don't think that's the barrier, and I don't think that was Harris's barrier. I hope not, because you look at in the battleground states that pick presidents, they're open to all sorts of politicians.
Well, it was economy really is what would the sort of the
That's
exit
what they
thing told. But
say.
now look at it. So, we'll see if that was true.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. Okay, wait. I got to hear more about the fancy Hollywood stuff, though. I mean, we know. I'll tell you. In our world, everyone's talking about Good Night and Good Luck. I know you
I
just
just
saw
saw,
it.
yeah.
And then Clooney's story of sort of coming out and writing about Biden is everywhere in politics because Jake Tapper has just written about it. So how is that you talk about how it's hard to not jump the shark in
Mm.
writers' rooms. It seems like some of those moments from history are maybe the way to get at this moment better than anything.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that his play is so timely and important, no matter what side you're on. I recommend anyone who's in New York to go see it. And what he and Grant Heslov have done with adapting the film and contemporizing it, is there's a piece at the end, and I won't ruin it for folks, but there's a bit of a status report, per se, of where we're at, where we've come from, and where we currently are, from McCarthyism to today. And it just lands the plane in such a heartbreaking slap in the face of, you literally, you see it, and it's upsetting that you sort of, my takeaway, at least as I was drying my tears,
Mm,
that it's been a bit of a frog boil. As much as we are aware of that, of the
mhm,
heat, it did really sneak up on us,
mhm.
and it's not coming. It's here. We're in it.
Yes.
And like all the way up to and including, they're coming for you. Like, they're literally knocking on people's doors today and pulling them
Mhm.
out and shipping them off, and not just into their home country and get out of here, we don't want to see her, into a maximum security horror den.
Mhm.
And so what do we do about that? It's really heartbreaking. And I refuse to believe that, even though the folks on the other side are numb to it. They deeply care about this country, just like we do. We all love the flag. We all love the military. We all care about the health of the country. And I'm just heartbroken that somehow they found a way to shield their eyes and their ears from the current status, and that they could be so helpful to fixing that. It doesn't take a lot of them, just a few of them, to kind of say, you know what, my bad. I'll make a better choice next time. And you don't even need to admit it. I mean, that's why there's a little curtain you can close behind you when you go in the booth, And
Hmm.
so, I don't know. It was a great show, and he's I think he's done a lot for giving voice to a bunch of people like myself that no one really wants to hear from. It's like, okay, Hollywood elite, would tell us how you feel about America, but we don't care about the country any less. And if you can use that uniqueness to speak a little bit clearer, louder to a larger number of people, he's doing that, and this play is an example of that.
I think Trump is aware of how powerful it is, and I think that's why he's so obsessed with. I mean, today he
Oh,
was out
Trump
there
is
attacking.
uniquely aware of what George is doing, and it's
Correct.
it's a problem. Yeah, it's
Correct.
yeah,
And I think his attacks on Bruce Springsteen for what he said in
yeah.
Manchester at the end of his concert, I think today was attacking Beyonce. I mean, I
Well, and
actually
that was a
think,
chilling thing. Like that, is that not a
correct.
precursor for a complete IRS? There, I mean, he's kind of created the predicate for the IRS going all the way into Beyonce's finances, Springsteen's finances. There's nothing there, but he set up the predicate for it, and now he's just going to make their life, financial life, miserable, and
But
force
do you
them to spend a
know,
bunch
I
of money
mean,
to defend themselves.
but the reason I mean, and this is where I think so much of what they do is designed to chill, right? They want you to both believe that no one wants to hear from Hollywood elites when Trump is deeply interested in Hollywood elites,
Hmm.
and two, they want to make the barrier of entry so high so that it's just not worth it to speak out. And I think that he is acutely aware of how people with large platforms who don't like what he's doing do represent a threat to his political support.
Yeah, but the problem is that somehow those people are still kind of inoculated from that information, those voices, those
Yeah,
facts. I don't know how they do it. I mean, it is by choice. They are by choice keeping themselves insulated from those facts, or when they do hear them, they are using their intelligence to discount it and somehow feel more intelligent to imagine that there's actually a conspiracy and that there's a deep state and that somehow that's a more complicated thought, and so that
yeah,
makes them feel smarter. It's like, I mean, there's not some big effort to dupe America into
yeah.
thinking that Donald Trump is a bad guy, you know? It's like,
Well, I think what's amazing is too is his family is sort of our original sources. Like the most that most journalists have is the books written by his niece and nephew,
yeah.
Mary and Fred Trump. So to the degree that I know anything about his childhood, it's from reading about them. And I mean, to your point, there's so much original source material. I feel like the power of the Murrow story and the facts all being out there is that I mean, I always view our show as like a sports bar, right? Like they have to be open every day. They have to have like the good turkey burger and like the nice fish tacos. It has to be good because
Is
people find
Heilman
that
the turkey
comfort in.
burger?
Well, yeah, but like people have to. It has to be open every day,
Yeah.
and like we're not Broadway, right? Like I do not put on Good Night and Good Luck. We are not Clooney, right? We're not Smartless, right? We will not make you laugh, but like we're there every day, and when people are ready, when the price of everything is so high that people are like, man, how did we get here, and how do we get out of here? Like we're just going to be there every day, and so to me, it's like how do you keep the doors open and keep it straight enough? And then that's why we have all these economists on, like, how do you keep it inviting enough so that when people are ready to come, we're open and we're friendly and like we have a good meal if you haven't eaten yet. The game's on, and it's like keep it open, keep it friendly, and keep it real so that when people are ready, you're there.
And your group, as you put it, your favorite friends and reporters, or what the phrase
Yeah, my
is.
favorite
But
reporters and friends.
yeah, it's a great group. So congrats to you and to your team, your staff, and whatever you're doing. You have a great mix of steadies that that are in there, Heilman included, and McCaskill, and
Yes.
I mean, it's a, and throughout all the shows on MSNBC,
Thank you.
I love it, and I know you guys are probably all going through a weird time. I hope that morale is as high as it deserves to be over there, and you guys keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You keep doing everything that you're doing. We
Thanks.
love all of it. I know you're getting all the buzz. Can you tell us anything about Black Rabbit?
Oh, yeah, I can. Sure. That is a limited series that I have coming out on Netflix in September. It's an 8 episode show. Jude Law and I play brothers that run a night spot in the Lower East Side. And the first episode is a break in at this place, and a couple people get shot, and they steal a bunch of jewelry, and then you flash back 6 months, and you spend a few episodes catching up to that moment, and then you reveal who did it, and then the last 2 episodes are kind of the fallout from that. But it's really well done. If I do say so, just because there's so many great people involved with this thing, and I'm super proud of it. I think it's the best thing I've ever done, and I'm just really excited for it to come out. Really
And
excited.
Laura Linney's involved. Everyone loves you and Laura Linney from Ozark.
I brought her in to direct a couple
Does
of
she direct?
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she did. I finally talked her into doing one on Ozark, and it was one of our best episodes ever. It was the first time she'd ever directed
Which
anything.
one did she episode?
I forget what it was called, but we get in like this traffic jam at the end, and I just storm out of the car and I walk all huffy towards camera. If people remember that, we get into this big huge fight. But she directed 2 of these in Black Rabbit, and was just fantastic. And she could have very easily said no, especially once she had done one and she knew how much work it was. But she didn't. She leaned into it and she said, "Yeah, I'd love to. It's just a few blocks from my house, and let's go to it." And the episodes are incredible. She was awesome. So
I can't wait to see it.
yeah.
I went back and watched the first Ozark.
Oh yeah.
I remembered everything there, but I couldn't, like, in my brain, I was like, I don't remember how they got there. So I
Right.
watched the first one,
Oh wow.
and I forgot the drop, and I like screamed out loud. The
Oh,
death
right.
from
The
and
guy that falls off the building. Yeah.
the lover, and I watched the whole thing, and I don't know if I blocked it out. I don't know. Maybe there's something about how dark it is, and like
Yeah,
escaping.
that was a lot of
It's like
fun.
kind of like in the back of my brain, I'm always like, where would I go? And so
Yeah.
I had a whole, like, really going like from Chicago to, like that part of it really like spoke to me in a different way watching it again.
So that there's a body that falls from the 40th floor and hits the
and like it
pavement.
falls.
Yeah, well, I wanted to. I wanted to have a dummy do that. I didn't want that to be computer generated. So we dropped a 200-pound dummy from about 300 feet. But we had to put it on cables in case the wind blew it towards me, because I was standing pretty close to the landing spot. But then in post-production, the amount of time I spent trying to get the sound right of what a body would sound. I mean, it was a very bleak, dark. Some of the stuff we have to go through to get the authenticity just right. But it was, and then in Black Rabbit, kind of semi-spoiler, there is a body that falls at one point in one of the episodes, and I'm working with the same sound crew, the same mix team, and so we grabbed that file from the first episode of Ozark, and so
It's so
this
good.
body drops from not quite as high, so we had to adjust the sound a little bit, but getting that sound just right is dark
it's
work,
so
but
good,
it's fun.
because he's sleeping with your wife, like the reaction isn't horror. It's like it's just
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah,
you
look what
know,
you
like-
got. Yeah.
yeah, huh. It's so good, and I wonder too. Are you totally free from the real world when you're in those moments when you're directing or acting?
Yeah, for sure. Totally different part of the brain, and I truly, truly love doing what I do. The directing a little bit more than the acting, just because you're kind of in charge of what people are hearing and seeing and thinking, hopefully. Whereas with the acting, you're just kind of responsible for your one character. And I don't mean to imply that people that are actors are doing easy work and directors are doing hard work. It's many more levers that you're obligated to know about and prepare for, but also have the privilege to participate in. And so I love it just because it's harder, and it kind of calls on all the things that I've kind of been trying to absorb since I started when I was a little kid.
And I know even though all of your co-anchors, you guys give each other so much shit, it's clear that your sort of longevity as an actor also fuels all the respect you garner as a director. I mean, it feels like it's very hard for you guys to give each other any compliments, but
Yeah.
even like a person that doesn't know any of you can feel that come through and attach to you.
What that there is a begrudging sort of respect for one another.
Respect
Yeah,
that like it
for
is
sure.
clear that because you have played such iconic roles that I mean my son knows Arrested Development. He's 13. Like there's
Oh
no
yeah,
reason for him, like it's like the things you've done have different lives.
yeah.
But do you think that coming to directing, I mean, you've always directed and acted, but does that make it something that is a faster line to having actors respect you, that you feel their pain?
Perhaps. I mean, maybe at a minimum, they can assume that the direction from the director is going to be a little bit more actor friendly, because it is a difficult thing to try to figure out how to speak actor. When somebody is doing a scene where they're having to maybe play the emotion of jealousy, and they're just it's coming across more as paranoia as opposed to jealousy. And what word would you say to an actor to get that performance? It's because we're all crazy. I mean, I'm nuts. We're pretending to be other people. It's a weird thing. So it is nice for crazy to talk to crazy. But you're right. Me and Will and Sean, we do give each other a lot of shit, but there is a deep amount of respect for one another. Will just did this really, really cool, tough, dramatic, and comedic movie that he wrote, that Bradley Cooper just directed, who's an incredible director. Talk about an actor director. I mean, he's, I think, one of our finest directors. And so he just directed that. And so Will's got that coming out. I don't want to jinx anything, but there's a good shot. There's going to be nominations for that film. So
So
Will's got
cool.
all the respect in the world I could give. And Sean, when he did Good Night Oscar, which was a play on Broadway last year that he won a Tony for, when Will and I went and saw that, Sean's a classically trained pianist, and we'd never really seen him play piano. And he plays Rhapsody in Blue at the end of that thing for 10 minutes by himself in the middle of the stage on this grand piano. And then the curtain comes down, and Will and I are crying. And I looked at Will. I said, "Well, he's just ruined the podcast, because now we can't make fun of him anymore. We got too much respect for him." It was really, really amazing. So they're really special guys, and they're very, very good at what they do. But you wouldn't know that, because they like to play dumb a lot. And I hope, if we do anything well, it's that we're just kind of just playing grab ass and trying to get on with it and ask some decent questions, as the sort of common folks that we are.
I mean, what you guys model in terms of friendship and connection, as busy as you all are, as successful as you all are, is really, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not unique. We all have really close friends. We're fortunate that we get to do it in front of a microphone and bring on people that, as I said earlier, wouldn't normally get a chance to talk to, and the fact that that's also interesting to the people that listen to us is just really fortunate. So we get to keep doing it, hopefully.
I love it. I hope you
Yeah,
guys do it for a very long time.
yeah, me too.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It truly is a pleasure to meet you, and hope to do
It's
so
such
in
a
person
privilege.
someday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Thanks, Nicole.